I'd just like to share briefly, Jamie McNair, 79 Sanker Ave, work at the high school in the 18 Hartford. Thank you so much for sending some folks to join us at the last task force meeting. It was an awesome conversation, productive, and we look forward to continuing to do that work. I know that one of the things that Paul, like I said, was there, and Beth all expressed is maybe some information that would be evidence-based, and since a lot of what we're doing is new, that isn't all that prevalent, but I did come up with some information that I thought might be of interest or of use to the board to take a look at. So, one of them is actually from Carol Burris, who been cited in his presentation about the Common Core, and she actually finds some data on NAEP scores in regards to the Common Core. So I'll pass that around. There's a copy for everybody to take a look at. And then there are two other pieces here that, oh, you know what? I just gave you my original stack. Okay. My apologies. Yep. Let's try this again. Yeah, that's the one from Carol Burris. That's the most recent. And then there are just two other pieces that provide a little background information that is relevant to the conversation that we had last time. So I'll share those as well. And our next meeting is next Monday, the 28th at 6:30 p.m. We're at 7 Elmwood Court. If anybody's interested in attending, we'd love to have you join us. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anybody else like to address the board tonight? Coach? Did you want to address the board, Coach? Yep.
Just want to take a little time. First of all, I want to thank you for giving me time here. My wife and I was always wanting to take the time to thank the people, because my priority is the budget. It covers all the people. And that's why I was always concerned, because my kids benefited from it, my grandkids have benefited from it. But I think thanks should come to the following, especially to the Board of Education. I know how hard you work to get the budget ready. And also our Superintendent Bob Noe, with a business background, helps a lot. He does a good job and a great job. And Mary Mandel also does a great job. And we also got to remember the community, the people in the community that come in and vote for this budget. We've been very lucky. I think we've been very great. And I think you've taken the budget and you submitted it in the right way, or the fair way. And I think you just got to keep it up, because we got great students. We got a great school, no doubt about it. We're even ranked in the state very high, and even in the nation. So I mean, just keep up the good work. My wife and I always wanted to have a chance to do this. I couldn't do it last year because I did my hip operation. This year I'm doing it after the budget, but I got to do it now to say a few words. But again, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else that would like to address the board? Okay, I don't know if we need to excuse Bob. Item 4, correspondence and communication to be tabled from the next meeting. Oh, you do have it? Oh, you do have it. Okay, great.
So first of all, Mr. Knowles, sorry you couldn't be here, still a little bit under the weather, and asked if I would share our correspondence and communication, and to actually follow up on what Coach said, and you wanted me to inform you that two organizations did rank New Hartford nationally recently. One was Newsweek magazine ranked New Hartford in the top 1% of high schools across the United States. They took into account the following factors. It had to do with graduation rate, college acceptance rate, percentage of students taking AP exams, SAT scores, and the percentage of students enrolled in AP. So that was their criteria, and again, New Hartford came out in the top 1%. We have been listed by Newsweek every year that they have done America's Best High School poll. In the same week, New Hartford also ranked in the top 1% in the Washington Post poll. It used a little bit different formula, but we came out essentially the same, 241. Mr. Knoll wanted me to be sure to express his gratitude to the board, the community, the students certainly, for the ones getting those great scores, and the faculty and support staff. It was truly K-12 effort and a community effort. And we are proud of that recognition and proud that we are serving our students. That concludes that report.
I've got some, thanks, Miss. I got some questions on correspondence. What is the process for correspondence addressed to the Board of Education when it comes to Oxford Road and its dissemination to the board? Anybody know?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
When a letter or some type of correspondence comes to the board, addressed to the Board of Education, and it comes to 33 Oxford Road, what is the process to disseminate that communication to the board?
And I don't know, I'd have to,
From my experience, it comes from the superintendent's office before them is addressed. If it's an emergency, you would get it right away, and if not, you would get it in your Friday, information. You can't make sure weekly correspondence. That's from my experience with the superintendent's office.
That's great, thanks. And that's wonderful, if that's the process. Vince, please follow up on it, because I handed you guys a letter. Mrs. Mulvihill wrote a letter to the Board of Education on February 10th, 2014, and none of us got the letter. Okay, so the issues that she describes is one thing, but the issue of us not getting a letter and then a response given to Mrs. Mulvihill by the administration and the board president without the board seeing this, I think is a problem. So if you can find out what that process is, we'd like to get it fixed. Thanks. A couple other questions on communication. I'd like to know, and Mr. Petrowski brought up a couple issues last time regarding the board president sending out correspondence with letterhead of the board without board knowledge. I'd like to know under what authority the board president has to write editorials to the OD without our knowledge and without our approval. Do you have the authority to do that?
I believe I have the authority.
In what way?
to do that.
In what way?
I guess it's in the, I guess I would go back to our super, or our policy of what I have the authority to speak on behalf of the district.
No, you have the authority to speak on behalf of the board when we know what the issue is, but you do not have the authority to speak for the board in a public way without our knowledge or consent. Furthermore, to write it as the board president, you have every right to talk as you want to talk, but I think that you have not only violated the trust of the board by doing that, but also violated our policy on direct contact with the OD as a board member. I'd also like to know on what authority the board president has to send responses to other entities without the board knowledge and approval. Is there an authority for that? For example, if
Again, I believe I have the authority to represent the board.
this came to the Board of Education, we never saw it, and you sent a response as board president without our knowledge or consent, and I want to know what authority you have to do that.
Again, there's a chain of command in the district. The chain of command is Bob to Mary. They consulted me on getting back to that person. Mary got back, and the issue was resolved.
Right, but your name was listed in the response.
Correct.
And the board never saw this.
Correct.
Under what authority do you have to do that?
As board president.
No, there's no authority by board president. You're circumventing your authority and
Okay,
overstepping your
we'll get a
bounds.
reading.
yeah, I'll talk to Bob and we'll get legal.
I have one more. Under what authority does the board president have to decide administrative questions, i.e. the meeting room for the request by the task force? I like to ask questions of the administration, but I don't recommend what they do about something. The board president decided, when it became a board issue by Bob asking, to not allow them to meet here. I want to know under what authority you have to do that, to make the administrative decision for Bob.
John, you want to address that? You and I talked about
I
that.
don't think that one was the president or the vice president making the decision. I think that was, we were asked, did Bob want us to make an exception to a standard practice? so our position was, we need to be consistent and treat that organization like the other. So it wasn't that we were administering policy. We were simply saying, whatever the policy says, enforce that policy.
But the response was given by the president to the task force as the president of the board. I want to know under what authority she has to make that administrative call without conferring with the board.
Well, I think what you're seeing is that there are, the president has the ability to elevate something to the board if an exception wants to be made. So if the president had said, you know what, I think policy shouldn't apply to this group, and in order for that to happen, we need board approval for an exception to this policy.
Great.
But when it's simply follow the policy, that's not a board decision.
No, but the board president, sent an email that specifically said, I am not allowing this. And under what authority does the board president have to make administrative decisions? Instead of just saying, Bob, enforce the policy, the board president took it upon herself to administer the policy. Under what authority does she have to do that?
I will admit, I don't remember the email where the president said, I'm not allowing it, but having been involved in those discussions, it was never, in my opinion, that the president would not allow it. It was simply the president was saying, and I agree, follow the policy, and as you and I discussed, I think it's important because while that group has very valid concerns, the very next week, we had another group of people in here with the exact opposite concerns. And so if all of a sudden, one group doesn't have to follow the policy, well then, do we waive the policy for the following group? And so it's just.
But I'm not discussing the content. I'm not discussing the decision. I'm discussing what authority does the board president have to directly communicate with an outside entity to say, no, you can't do something when it's an administrative responsibility to do so? And there is none, is what I'm hearing. There is no authority.
Well, and I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not aware that that's what happened. In the conversation I had, Bob, I think as a courtesy, asked if we wanted to make an exception. And it was conveyed to Bob that we felt we needed to be consistent.
But who are we, John?
We meaning the officers of the board.
Yeah, but why? Why, if Bob asks the board something and asks you something, doesn't it become a board responsibility?
Well, there are.
It does. The answer is it does. It becomes my responsibility to hear it as well as Pete's or Paul's and everybody's responsibility to hear it, not just the officers.
I think what you're failing to appreciate is that in the course of any given week, there are issues that could come to the board's attention or could be handled administratively. Okay? And they run the gamut.
But no, there's no issue that goes from administration to the officers. There's no authority for officers to act alone.
Okay, we're gonna cut this off, and we're gonna ask Vince to go back and see what my ultimate authority is and power. And I would, hope that you could report back out at the next meeting. Thank you, appreciate your concern with that. Okay, board committee reports. Building.
Right, revised building and ground management plan, so disregard the one you have.
I was gonna read it on my phone, it's okay?
Yeah, I printed it out.
I was at the PTA meeting, so I wasn't ready late.
We're in the building. All right. Building Grounds and Transportation Committee meeting minutes from April 1st, 2014. Meeting was called to order at 5 p.m. Members of the committee, myself, Ms. Flemma, and Mrs. Phillipson, and then a whole host of other people, including Mr. Handel, Mr. Knoll, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Holzer, Ms. Luker, Dr. Levatino, Mr. Petrowski, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Shields, Mr. Callen, and Ms. Lawrence. I always want to say Mary. Mrs. Mrs. Mandel distributed information packets regarding our current safety initiative and the potential hiring of retired police officers in the district. And we debated whether or not a proposition or a survey should be presented to district voters. Mr. Shields reviewed the information with the committee. A lengthy discussion and question and answer period ensued regarding the pros and cons as well as the financial implications to the district. The BG&T committee members voted to survey the voters in lieu of a permissive referendum and to proceed with a recommendation to the Board of Education to pilot a new safety initiative in 2014-15, to enter into an agreement with the New Hartford Police Department to engage 2 full-time equivalent retired law enforcement officers for a cost not to exceed $130,000. We reviewed policies with Mrs. Mandel, Mr. Morgan, and Mr. Hulser, the procedures that are in place for the athletic field preparation for the spring sports season. It was a very in-depth presentation about athletic turf field snow removal procedures for the past few years. Those were reviewed, including details of SUNY IT's field maintenance versus New Hartford Central School District field maintenance. And they did an excellent job. There were even pictures. The Utica National Safety Award and Grant will be announced at the Board of Education meeting on April 1st. I feel like I'm giving it away. Oh, it was announced, sorry. I'm like, wait, it was announced. I feel like that sounds familiar to me. Which we won, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was working on it.
And it was the title of it?
Top awards for safety, and we received a $500 grant from Utica National as well.
Thank you. And the meeting was adjourned at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. Lisa, staffing and
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute, we're gonna approve these?
No, it's just
They're
your
not-
report.
They're just exactly, they're not.
Oh, yeah, well, we're not done with it yet. Then there is a proposition, a recommendation to the Board of Education to pilot a new safety initiative in 2014-15 to enter, voted on by the Building, Grounds, and Transportation to enter into an agreement with the Hartford Police Department to engage 2 full-time equivalent retired law enforcement officers for a cost not to exceed $130,000. We voted on that unanimously, and we voted to bring that to the board at the last meeting. We were not allowed to do that. This is the time that this is now in front of the board.
No, and actually, no, we did not.
See, everybody thought that it was already
No,
done.
we didn't have to vote on it.
We don't have to vote on it.
It's just, we don't have to vote on it.
Why not?
Because it's just taking, right, Mary, it's just taking the money and it's part of our safety initiative and we just decide, the administration decides how they're gonna spend that money. Is that
And we have
correct?
agreed
Pending
to
budget,
vote and pretend,
right, pending
yeah,
budget
right.
approval.
Pending budget approval and also pending town approval and
Town
pending a
approval.
formal proposal from the police department.
And then the other thing too is, the whole board will vote or not vote for or against a whole agreement, an actual agreement. We had a proposal or proposition from the town of Hartford Police Department, not to exceed $130,000. What will eventually come to the board at the budget vote is an actual agreement with the town. It'll be drawn up by the town's attorney and presented to us again. I'm sure saying exactly the same thing as what we have here, and that will have full voter approval, just as we do with all
Well, there
other
may need to
agreements
be
and
another,
contracts.
there may need to be another vote, but
Right.
the bottom line is that the BG&T voted to
Yes.
bring this recommendation to the board right now, right? Oh, yes, that, we were supposed to do it at the last meeting, Beth.
No.
We were supposed to walk it into the last meeting in lieu of a, it's
No,
on video.
That-
I'll
We
bring it
walked
to you.
No, we walked it in as a proposal, which we are moving forward on. The vote is not required until the actual proposal, not a hypothetical proposal.
Well, then what did we vote on?
We voted to move forward.
And I think part of the confusion was when the concept was, it was going to be a budget proposal that you vote on, like the bus.
Yes,
proposal.
referendums between a
That
referendum
had
and.
to be voted on by
Right.
the full board.
Right,
But
and
when
in
it
lieu of
needs-
that, we voted on this to bring this to the board.
No,
Yes,
no,
it's
no.
in the minutes,
Oh.
it's in the minutes.
But-
Yeah, but we did bring it to the board.
but Ed,
No, we didn't. When did we bring it to the board?
She reported it out in the minutes at the last meeting.
We making a recommendation to bring it to the board, and now the recommendation
It
is
is.
there for action by the board.
No, it doesn't require
No,
action
when-
until we actually
yeah.
have the proposal.
when.
We have the proposal.
No.
Yes, we do.
The
We have $130,000 as the limit, to not exceed it. We have the proposal from the New
No.
Hartford Police Department, and we voted on it to bring it to the board for action. And that's what we voted on.
No, we have an estimate from them, it's a hypothetical proposal that we have agreed as a board to move forward on.
No, we have not.
Oh,
The BG&T has agreed, the board has not agreed. The board has not agreed to do anything.
The board doesn't have to agree. The board doesn't.
Sure we do.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't.
And
We don't have to vote
When we
on it
get the
until
agreement.
we get the
we
agreement.
we are where you want the process to be, okay? BG&T has agreed, has put forth a conceptual proposal with a dollar figure attached. The board is aware of it, and then we proceed with fleshing out that proposal, getting it a legal agreement, and then that's what we vote
Which also
on.
has
And we
to be
can't
approved
even
by the
vote
town.
on, it wouldn't be prudent to vote on 130,000 until the budget passes, because that's all contingent on the budget. So we're proceeding down the path, okay? It's just, I think there was some confusion with what had happened, because when it was a proposition, that required vote by April 1st.
Well, that's great, and all that's great, Jeff. But what the committee voted on was to bring this to the board for a vote on video that says we're bringing this for board action tonight in lieu of the proposal. And we didn't do that because we're not allowed to do that. And it is now time to do that. So if this board says that the committee's recommendation is not worthy of voting on, great, but the committee voted on
That is not
it.
what the board is saying. They're not saying that the action is not worthy of voting on. They're saying that this is not the appropriate time to vote on it.
But it is, to get
In
things
your
going.
opinion,
No,
it is.
no, in
Okay.
the.
I'm gonna cut discussion.
Madam
No, you're not gonna
President,
cut discussion out because
Madam
this is a
President,
committee issue.
I would suggest that you continue with the agenda.
Thank you, I am
Thank you.
business, thank you.
There you go.
Item 6, old business.
No, no, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, staffing curriculum, yes, thank you. The staffing and curriculum committee met on April 7th. And we received, first, you all have all these minutes, I'm just gonna highlight some things. We received the occupational education department report by Mrs. Weber. And I'll just highlight some things. For Project Lead the Way, some of you attended the Da Vinci surgical robot that they hosted this year. Students participated in the U.S. First Robotic Competition and earned 2 prestigious awards, the Rookie All-Star and the highest Rookie Seed Awards. And as we mentioned in the budget hearing, there's going to be a new course in the fall, a computer science and engineering class in the fall, and we already have 2 sections lined up, so
That's awesome.
yay. In the computer and business classes, the students participated in the Hour of Code initiative, which was a nationwide initiative to get students to start thinking about code, and that was part of Computer Science Education Week. In family and consumer sciences, I'll just highlight that they held a chopped competition for cooking, which was really great. And I said, staffing and curriculum wants to be invited to that next year. If you want to
What
judge.
was in the basket?
I don't know.
I bought my grandson one maker.
Is that right? Really?
So I forgot, yeah, he did. I don't know what was in there.
I love that.
It was
They had
really
a
enjoyed,
chopped
that was really, they
competition.
enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, so, and the rest of the things you can read in your minutes. The social studies department, they gave us a report, and basically they're focusing on common language of instruction. They're beginning the transition toward a new format for AP US history. It's gonna be every other day all year.
No, the College Board has a new curriculum for APS.
College Board, sorry, I got mixed up with the.
So they're revising that
thank you.
curriculum.
Thank you.
And he'll be
Thank you.
spending the
It's
next
gonna be a
year
new
on
AP test,
it.
is that right, new AP test,
Yes.
sorry. The teachers are active in a number of clubs, as you can see. Again, we have very strong regions and AP exam results, and there's also strong enrollment in the AP electives in the social studies department. We also received a report about the Delta program, which, as you know, we sort of suspended it this year to sort of look and see what we wanted to do for the future. And Mr. Condra gave us a report, and we're calling it tentatively, working name is Delta 2.0 until we come up with a good name. But basically, there's going to be sort of two branches of it. One will be the literary branch, and one will be the STEM branch. Program will serve qualified students in grade 1 through 6 in each elementary school. The library media specialist will develop and teach the literary portion, and we will hire a teacher to develop and teach the STEM portion. And as you know, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. We're going to have some computer coding instruction using an MIT developed program. There's going to be some engineering instruction using some BOCES programs. Students will meet once per 6-day cycle for direct instruction. So we're very excited about it. Again, it keeps the literary portion, and it also encompasses some STEM and, you know, coding and computer and nano and things like that. So, you know, we think this will be really a much better enrichment option for the students.
Does the STEM start in grades 1 through 6?
Yes.
Any other questions about Delta that perhaps Mr. Condra?
I just have to say, I was on staffing curriculum before when we decided to suspend Delta, and I think this is exactly what we had envisioned at that point, to really make it a much stronger enrichment program and to move towards the STEM, and I commend you for both the committee's work and Mr. Condor, yours, it's great.
I also want to comment, not on STEM, but
On
on
computer
computer
science?
science.
Yeah.
For the last
I
4
know.
years,
Last
I
4
think it's
years.
great, and kudos to the high school for getting class enrollments up. That's outstanding, and it runs parallel to careers, so great job.
Great. Mr. Condro gave a update on the state testing and local testing reduction. And basically, just as you can see, I don't have to give the numbers, but overall 302 out of 1,165 eligible students opted out, and that was 26%. And you can see the breakdown per school and the breakdown per grade. And so, again, we'll be looking at that next week as well for the math assessments. And finally, we received a report from Mr. Condro on proposed elementary grading scale adjustment. Mr. Condro has reviewed some material, and we've reviewed it from him regarding the grading scale, and we're talking about adjusting the scale to more accurately reflect student achievement, and the committee will continue to review this topic. And we adjourned at 6:20. Chock full agenda.
Thank you, Lisa. Item 6, old business. A, third reading of policies and regulations. Steve? Need a motion or minutes?
No, you don't need a motion.
Yes, you do, we
Oh,
have.
yeah,
third
these
reading.
are both, yeah. These are both.
So we need a motion?
Yes.
Right.
So a resolution?
No, it's a motion to approve the following policies.
It's recommended.
Is
Somebody
this
read this?
following?
Yes.
Do I need it?
I would recommend that the following policies, regulations be adopted following the third and final reading. They range from 3010 all the way to 3015.
Motion. Is that Jim?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Lisa. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 7A passes 7-0. 7, new business, A, personnel appointments, A, English teacher.
It is recommended that Kelly Paul be appointed on probation to the tenure area of English. Service shall begin on September 1, 2014, and end on August 31st, 2016. Mrs. Paul is permanently certified in nursery, kindergarten, grades 1 through 6, and English, grades 7 through 9.
Move.
Second.
Jay, thank you, Beth. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 7-1A passes 7-0. 7B, permanent substitute speech and language pathologist.
It is recommended that Anna Maria Mirza be appointed to the position of permanent speech or permanent substitute speech and language pathologist. Service shall begin on May 1, 2014, and end on June 30, 2016, pursuant to the agreement with the collective bargaining unit. Mrs. Mirza is certified initially in the areas of speech and language disability.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was the first one? Thank you, Lisa. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? B passes 7-0. C, substitute teacher list.
It is recommended that the following be appointed to the per diem substitute teacher list. Mary Herzog Spanik, certified in mathematics, grades 7 through 12, and Melissa Shippey, certified as an occupational therapist.
Motion?
Second.
Beth, sorry, thank you, Paul. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? C passes 7-0. D, substitute cleaners.
It is recommended that Alex Brown be appointed to the position of substitute cleaner effective April 23rd, 2014, pending satisfactory clearance for employment by the State Education Department.
Moved. Thank you, Lisa. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ed. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? D passes 7-0. 3-1.
It is recommended that Vincent Del Mastro be appointed to the position of substitute cleaner effective April 23rd, 2014, pending satisfactory clearance for employment by the State Education Department.
Thank you, Paul. Second? Thank you, Beth. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? 2 passes, 7-0. Item 3,
It is recommended that Colin Douglas be appointed to the position of substitute cleaner, effective April 23rd, 2014, pending satisfactory clearance for employment by the State Education Department.
moved. Thank you, Lisa. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ed. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? 3 passes, 7-0. Item 7E, substitute bus drivers.
It is recommended that David Kassler be appointed to the position of substitute bus driver, effective April 23rd, 2014, pending satisfactory clearance for employment by the State Education Department.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ed. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? E1 passes 7-0. E2,
It is recommended that John Winter be appointed to the position of substitute bus driver, effective April 23rd, 2014, pending satisfactory clearance for employment by the State Education Department.
thank you, Paul. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Lisa. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? 2 passes 7-0. 2, unpaid leave of absence.
It is recommended that the request for an extension to an unpaid leave of absence be granted to Katrina Griffith from July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2015.
Thank you, Jim.
Second.
Thank you, Ed. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? 2 passes 7-0. D, adoption of BOCES budget for 2014-15.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the tentative administration budget of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, Sole Supervisory District of Oneida, Herkimer, and Madison counties in the amount of $2,298,190.75 for 2014-15.
75 cents, huh?
Moved.
Second?
Thank you, Beth. Lisa? Discussion?
Down to the penny.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Item B passes 7-0. Thank you. C, 7C, election of BOCES board members.
It is recommended that the Board of Education cast its votes for the slate of candidates as presented at the April 2nd, 2014 BOCES annual meeting.
Thank you, Jim. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? C passes 7-0. D, budget transfers.
It is recommended that the February 28th, 2014 budget transfers be approved.
Motion? Moved. Thank you, Beth. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Discussion?
Thank you, Kim, Marion, for putting it together, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? D passes 7-0. E, Committee on Special Education.
The recommendations from the Committee on Special Education's meetings of March 21, 26, April 4th, April 8th, and April 9th, all of this year, presented for approval.
Motion? Moved. Thank you, Beth.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? E passes 7-0. 504 Committee.
The recommendations from the 504 Committee's meeting of March 21 and April 8th, 2014 are presented for approval.
Motion? Moved. Thank you, Lisa. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ed. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? F passes 7-0. G, Committee on Preschool Special Education.
The recommendations from the Committee on Preschool Special Education's meeting of April 4th, 2014 are presented for approval.
Thank you, Jim. Second? Paul? Thank you, Paul. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, G passes 7-0. Item 8, have a motion to adjourn.
Can I just say one thing? I'd like to say that I just found out, maybe Jennifer, you know this, that,
16 Hartford students are teen all-stars. It's our highest number ever.
6 out of 25 from the Hartford are teen all-stars.
Very nice.
1/4 of them. It's great, great to all kids, all the kids from all the schools.
Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn?
Discussion.
Thank you, Beth.
Discussion, there was a scheduled executive session for tonight?
Yeah, and that's gonna be pushed out, given that Bob's not here.
Okay.
Second?
Second.
No, that's yours, buddy.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourn?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Call it a night.
You do it.